Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first ever U.S. history video podcast. I think it's the first one. I haven't showed you guys enough. Anyways, doesn't matter. Here we go. I'm going to pull up the screen. Now you've got my computer up there. You want to be paying attention up that way. Yep, you see that. And we're going to go live, and here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the new nation. That's right. The United States has gotten its freedom. Treaty of Paris. Here's what it looks like. 1789, right? The war is over. We got this new country. We're super stoked. Anyways, what are some of the problems that this new nation faces? Because we have plenty of them. We've got lots and lots of problems, and we got to talk about those. First of all, the United States is massively in debt. We're a nation born in debt, and this is obviously a modern-day political cartoon. You can love it or hate it, that's fine, but I just like the image of the debt and the money pouring out. Of course, it was $50 million at the time, which is nothing compared to today's debts. But anyways, a country in debt. Another problem, the United Kingdom, England, is punishing us. They're mad. They gave us our freedom in the end because we fought and earned it, but they want to make us pay for it. And so they're going to do all kinds of things like take away our duty-free shipping. We used to get to take our ships anywhere, to any port in the English world, and it was free. Now we got to pay. People are going, maybe being free isn't so great after all. Whoa. Britain's going to flood our market. Remember all those boycotts? Well, they were making all these British goods they couldn't trade with us, and now they are going to just ship it all over here at low, low prices, and it's going to really hurt our local industries that had been flourishing during our boycotts and our protests and the war and all that good stuff. On top of it, all of this sort of combined is going to lead to a post-war financial crisis, and we'll see this almost after every single war that we'll fight, so keep that in mind. It's one of those little themes of history. We're also going to have foreign relations troubles. That's right, and if I'm going fast, you can always pause the video or watch it again later at home on YouTube. I'll post the website for you later. All kinds of foreign relation troubles. England didn't close her fur trade posts. They made too much money. We were supposed to do it, but then again, we were supposed to leave the loyalists alone, and we didn't do that either. On top of that, Spain shuts off access to the Mississippi. This is catastrophic to the Western farmers. It's terrible. France is demanding debt repayment. How dare her? Of course, they spent a lot of money for us to win this war. And then, perhaps maybe even one of the most serious problems at the time, the dread Pirate Day. You were thinking of Robert's Dread Pirate Day. Here he is. Oh, wait a minute. That's the wrong pirate. That's all of our favorite pirates, of course, but we're talking about the Barbary Pirates. Who were these guys? You'd be telling me you haven't heard of the Barbary Pirates? The infamous Barbary Pirates that we'll struggle with from the 1790s all the way until after the War of 1812. These are all famous images of Barbary pirates taking American ships. It used to be that if you were British or French, you had a little document that said, "Hello, I'm British. Pirates, leave me alone." It was like a get out of pirate jail free card. Well, we lost those cards when we stopped being British. And to get one of those cards, you had to spend a lot of money. The British gave a huge tribute to the Dey, the king of the Barbary states. We didn't have that anymore, so we forged a whole bunch, and we'd have these little fake ones that said, "Hello, pirates, leave me alone, I'm British," and there'd be like one little typo so you could tell it was fake, and then you'd get busted. Anyways, we had all kinds of trouble there. Just so you know who we're talking about, this is the map of the Barbary pirates. They went all the way from Morocco up through Turkey, and we'll get more into them later. Other issues will include disunity. America was a mess. We had 13 sovereign states. I'm not ready for that yet. Go back, go back, go back. We'll see what we can do. Anyways, we had that debate over the Western lands that was just being resolved. And then Shays Rebellion, which you just saw a video about, of course, right?
I'm sick and tired of hearing things from uptight, short-sighted, narrow-minded hypocrites. All I want is the truth.
Great John Lennon song where he says, "All I want is the truth." What really happened? And understanding Shays Rebellion and what really happened at Shays is important in understanding how our Articles of Confederation fall apart and how we ended up with the new and great Constitution of the United States of America. Your notes down here have a quote, Shays Rebellion. "I've labored hard all my days, and I've fared hard. I've been greatly abused, been obliged to do more than my part in the war, have been loaded with class rates, town rates, province rates, continental rates, and all rates." Of course, by rates, he means taxes. Now, you don't need my plow jogger impersonation. You can read the rest of the quote, but he's talking about what is going on here. And by now, you guys should have some idea, pretty good idea, having watched the video, about what this crisis was about. Here are the Shays rebels blocking the courts. They're protesting what, of course? Did I hear you say these new taxes? Did I hear you say veterans not getting paid? Farmers who struggled for the country losing their land? There were all kinds of problems, right? And they lead this rebellion. And it's a pretty serious rebellion, you know. There's all kinds of stuff going on here. Maybe somewhere between 100, 500, and 2,000 men, mostly farmers. And they get in front of the courts and they block the courts and they won't let anybody else go to jail or anybody else lose their land, and they're demanding change and they're demanding lower taxes and they're demanding money because there was no money to actually help you pay your taxes, right? Of course, some of these broke into fights, and we saw in the movie all kinds of stuff going on. But what I really want us to look at is the response. And we're not ready for this response yet, but this is, of course, the ultimate response. But what were the American leaders at the time saying? That old revolutionary, that old rebel Sam Adams had his famous quote, "In monarchy, the crime of treason may admit of being pardoned or lightly punished, but the man who dares rebel in a republic, the man who dares rebel against the laws of a republic ought to suffer death." Does it sound a little hypocritical? When I protested, it was okay. Now that somebody else is protesting, off with their heads, right? Thomas Jefferson, TJ, comes in with a completely opposite approach. He looks at it and he goes, cool. He says a little rebellion now and then is a good thing. God forbid we should ever be 20 years without such a rebellion. He picks, of course, 20 years because that's about a lifetime back then. That's a generation. Every generation, there should be a new rebellion. He goes on in that same letter and he says, the tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. It is its natural manure. Now, I want to point out that he was a pacifist, so he's not necessarily saying there needs to always be violence and killing, but he's saying that the struggle is part of the process. Also, though, to speak against TJ in this case, he was writing from France. He wasn't there. His friends were all like, dude, you weren't here. This stuff's crazy. These guys are wild. How dare you say this is cool and awesome that they're rebelling? George Washington comes in with his ever so serious, we are fast verging towards anarchy and confusion. He saw how critical and important this thing was, and so he wanted to see a quick and heavy response. And sure enough, what was the response? They send in the militia. But 80% of the first group of soldiers, why they abandoned their militia and they joined the men. They were like, wait, those are our friends. We understand what they're fighting for. Whoops. I think there was a second militia sent in. Same thing. People were now totally panicking. What's going on? The men are turning over to these guys. They're listening to them. These guys have shut down the system. The government's falling apart. Finally, the governor of the state gets a private militia with people who wouldn't know anybody, and they come in, 4,000 men, and they line up against the Shayites, the Shay rebels. They fire one cannon, kill 3 guys, and boom, the whole crowd scatters and it's over. Now, these guys were veterans. These guys were former soldiers. Do you think they're just going to run away if they really came to fight and start a war? I'm not so sure. They're not here to start a war. They were here because they were protesting something that they believed was truly wrong, which was the taxes and losing their land and being in debt and going to jail and all of this stuff. But how we interpret Shay is what matters the most. And our founding fathers, of course, when they interpreted this, they saw it as proof or evidence that our government was too weak. Now, I have some issues with that because they did handle it. It did go away. It took a couple tries, but they got rid of it, right? When we look at these lessons learned, I want you to think about, maybe write these both down. There's 2 various ways of looking at it. Were these crazy radicals that were out to defraud creditors and redistribute property? That's one way that it's portrayed by certain of our founding fathers, that these guys were dangerous. They wanted to overthrow the system, the mob, the masses, and they wanted to take away stuff from the wealthy and the elite. Or were these just honest, property-owning, anti-tax rebels, just like the guys who founded this nation, who just wanted to keep their farms? By the way, why were they having trouble paying for their farms? Because they were off fighting a war to help us be independent, and they were just in arrears, and their farms were a mess because they had sacrificed and given so much to this country. The vast majority of these guys happened to be veterans. Well, all of this aside, this will become the #1 tool used by the powers that be to convince people that we need a new government, that we need to change things. And so with this fear of the mob, the fear of the crowd, they call it mobocracy. They say democracy is a terrible thing because it leads to mobocracy, the rule of just madness, that the people who are poor and don't have land and aren't well educated will just do whatever anybody above them tells them. And so they come together with this call for a constitutional convention. Roman numeral 4, it starts, I should say, as a call to fix the Articles of Confederation for the sole and express purposes of revising. That was the original plan, right? And they get together in Philadelphia. They have this famous Constitutional Convention, this Congress. And it's very important to note that it's created through a process known as double distillation. All right? Double distillation refers to the idea that you might elect somebody, and then those guys choose somebody who goes to the meeting. All right? Does that make sense? And I'll point out that only 1/4, 25% of white men had access to vote. Forget about women, forget about Indians, forget about blacks, forget about all kinds of different groups. Only 25% of white men were choosing who was going to be a part of this. And they came up at the very beginning with a completely radical plan. All right? And the radical plan, they said, let's take that Constitution of theirs, they said, and let's scrap it. We can't amend it. It's not possible, so let's just create a whole new thing. Let's have a constitutional convention, and let's create a new government. Now I want you guys to sit back and take some time to look over the multiple choice questions, which will go back to the Articles of Confederation from the last unit, and then forward into the Shays Rebellion and talking about things, just to make sure that you're understanding everything we're doing and help you prepare for the next test and maybe the final exam and all that good stuff. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed our U.S. History podcast.